Why do I gasp so much? Hello everyone, welcome back. It is Sunday and I hope everyone is having a wonderful weekend. Today I decided that since I spent a lot of my vlog that I posted yesterday talking about how tired I was, that we would talk about a sleep related topic, and that topic is sleep paralysis. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about sleep paralysis if you don't know what it is, and then I will tell you a few stories about my experiences with it. Now, I have dealt with sleep paralysis for most of my life, so I won't be sharing every single story, otherwise we'll have like a million-hour video, but I will give you a few notable stories. And then if you have any questions or you want to hear more stories, you can leave that in the comment section and we will go from there. First, we're going to talk about what sleep paralysis is. Sleep paralysis is a sleep disorder that is often associated with narcolepsy, especially the cataplexy aspect of it. But you do not need to be a narcoleptic in order to experience sleep paralysis. Narcolepsy is not a prerequisite. So if you have sleep paralysis without narcolepsy, then it is called isolated sleep paralysis, which is what I have experienced for a majority of my life. So technically everybody experiences sleep paralysis. It is actually a normal part of the sleep cycle, and what it is once you get into your dream stage of your sleep cycle, when you hit REM state, your brain releases neurotransmitters that basically shuts off your muscles, relaxes them, and makes it so you can't move and essentially paralyzes you. And the reason for that is so you don't act out your dreams. That is normal. What happens in sleep paralysis is these neurotransmitters are released at the wrong time, when you are still awake and conscious. So, one aspect of sleep paralysis is called predormital sleep paralysis, and this happens as you're falling asleep or before you fall asleep. So, what happens is you're about to fall asleep, but instead your brain releases these neurotransmitters to basically try and push you into REM sleep before you're actually asleep. So you're awake and aware, but your body becomes paralyzed and you're basically in a sleeping state while you're awake. The other side of it is called postdormital sleep paralysis, which is when you wake up while you're still in this REM state, while these neurotransmitters are still released in your body, and you essentially become conscious but you still can't move. So some of the symptoms associated with sleep paralysis, excuse me, are hallucinations. They can be auditory, they can be visual, and they can be tactile. Tactile is actually feeling things on your skin. Or it could be all three. It could be a combination, or it could be all of them at once. And that makes this sleep disorder so scary because you're awake and aware, you're hearing things, you're seeing things, and you're feeling things, and it seems so real. But a lot of the times, these hallucinations are very bizarre. They can be very scary. They could be straight out of a horror movie. They can seem demonic and threatening, or just very, very strange. And it can feel very real because you're seeing, hearing, and feeling all of this stuff happening, but you're in sort of an almost dream state while you're awake. So your brain is kind of having trouble differentiating between reality and the dream world, basically. Now, a lot of people, through time, there's a lot of mythology behind it, a lot of explanations through different religions or different cultures, and a lot of the times people think and feel that this is a supernatural event. There are people on the other side who believe it is just basic biology, it's a disorder, it can be explained medically through science. And then there are people who believe that it can be a mixture of both. Sure, it can be explained medically, it can be explained scientifically, but maybe this altered state of mind that happens scientifically or medically opens up your mind to another dimension or the spirit world or something supernatural like that. And it's understandable why people would think that this is a supernatural thing, because it really, really does feel that way. It can be very scary. Some of the things that you see and hear can be terrifying. So with that, I would like to share with you a few of my more notable experiences with sleep paralysis. The first time that I experienced sleep paralysis, I was probably around 7 or 8 years old. I had woken up in the middle of the night and I was notoriously afraid of the dark. And sometimes instead of going to my parents' room and asking if I could sleep in their bed or sleep in their room, I would oftentimes go to my younger brother's room and sleep on his floor, because most of the time just having somebody else in the room was comforting to me. So that's what I had done that night. I just went into my brother's room with my blanket and my pillow and I laid on the floor. I don't remember if I woke him up to let him know that I was sleeping in there or not. I just remember that I went and laid down on the floor of his room to sleep in there because I was scared. So I'm laying there and trying to fall asleep, and I suddenly feel like this weird, like, tingly static sensation start in my head and go through my entire body, and I felt this weird feeling in my jaw, and I think it was just my jaw relaxing, which caused like this weird, like, almost like a split second, like, gagging kind of feeling in my throat. And that's the only way I can explain it. It was like a split second, like, nausea, but I think it was because my jaw relaxed. But that whole thing happened within like a second, and then it went away, but then I couldn't move. And I was very scared. My mouth was stuck open. I was trying to call for help. I was having trouble breathing, and I was paralyzed, and I didn't know why. This had never happened to me before, obviously. And then I started having auditory hallucinations. And I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Poltergeist. It was one of my favorite movies when I was a kid. Even though I was scared of the dark, I still loved horror movies. I still love horror movies. But there's a part in there where, I could be remembering this wrong, where you can hear her calling out for help, or something, "Help me! Help me!" And it kind of like, it's like coming out of the ether. It starts quiet and gets louder and starts quiet and gets louder, and that's what I could hear. And it sounded like it was somewhere above me, like towards the ceiling, like it was coming out of the air. And it didn't sound like it was in my head. It sounded like it was coming from somewhere else in the room above me. And that was very scary. So I don't know if it was me remembering that part in the movie, or if that was just me hearing myself in my head trying to call out for help to my brother, or a combination of both. But that was very terrifying. I don't remember if I ever, like, actually came out of it, or if I fell asleep after that, or if I even told anybody about it later. I don't believe that I did. I don't believe I told anybody about it until I was a lot older, like a teenager. But then after that, I started getting sleep paralysis more and more often, but it wasn't always associated with, I didn't always have hallucinations with it, and for a while I didn't have any hallucinations at all. And it got to the point where it was just kind of like I would fight against it, because I hated it, obviously, and mainly because it was really annoying, because I just wanted to fall asleep. So if I could feel it coming on, I would like kick my legs and stuff like that. But if it happened, I wouldn't have hallucinations, and I would just lay there, and I would kind of play a little game with myself, like, okay, on the count of 3, lift your arm, 1, 2, 3. And of course nothing happened, because I was paralyzed. So later on, when I got a little older, I moved down to the bedroom in the basement after my older brother moved out, and which is very funny for somebody who's afraid of the dark, but that's what I did. So one of the other notable things, experiences, was when I was in my room in the basement. I remember laying in bed and I got sleep paralysis, and I was scared, of course, and suddenly I heard this like really deep, growly, like demonic breathing on my bed, and I believe it felt like the bed got pushed down, like somebody had climbed onto the bed, and I heard this, like I said, this really growly, like demonic type of breathing. So of course I started like panicking, trying to fight more, and then I started to feel like this really crushing weight on my chest, as if something was sitting on my chest, and I could hear that same really scary breathing like a lot closer to my face. And of course I was panicking, and I was so scared, like I was convinced that there was a demon in my room. I was like, something is wrong, like I'm about to be possessed by a demon. But again, I don't remember if I got out of it and got out of bed, or if I fell asleep after that. I just remember being absolutely terrified. Something was on my bed and then on my chest, and I heard this growly breathing really close to me, and it felt and sounded so real. My room was pitch black and I couldn't see anything, but I could hear it and I could feel it. And I was convinced that there was a demon on my bed, and I didn't even know if I believed in that stuff, but it felt very, very real. The other notable one from when I was in that bedroom also contributed to what I thought for a long time was astral projection. I don't know if I actually believe that, but it could have been astral projection if that's real, or it could have just been, you know, being in that half conscious and like partial dream state where it was just part of the hallucination turning into a dream and going back to consciousness and stuff like that. And that very well could explain what that was. But what happened was I got sleep paralysis, and I started having, again, my room was pitch black, so I didn't really see anything, but I started having auditory hallucinations again, and the first thing I heard was a child laughing, which sounds very creepy because it was, but it didn't sound threatening like it would in a horror movie type of thing. It sounded like there was just a little kid running around playing and having fun, which there were no children running around in my basement, so that's still scary, but that aspect of it didn't seem very scary. But like what happened soon after that was I started hearing this other voice, which sounded like a very decrepit, witchy old woman voice, and it was very wicked and creepy sounding, and I don't remember what she was saying. I don't remember at the time if I could even understand what she was saying, but she was saying something to me, and it sounded very threatening and very sounded like she was taunting me and threatening me, and she was laughing, and she was saying all kinds of stuff that I don't remember what it was, or I don't know if I understood. And I was so scared because it was getting more and more intense. So I'm like fighting and fighting and fighting. Like I wanted to get out of bed so bad and leave my room and run upstairs and like, I don't know, go into my parents' room. I was probably like 14 or 15 at the time. I may have been 13, but I was like a young teenager at the time. So I'm like freaking out and trying to get out of bed, trying to break the sleep paralysis. And finally I did. I broke it. I got out of bed. I ran out of my room, I ran through the basement, and I got to the bottom of the stairs, and as soon as I got to the bottom of the stairs, I thought, I don't remember feeling my feet touching the ground. I don't feel my feet touching the ground at all. I don't remember actually running. And as soon as I thought as soon as that thought popped into my head, suddenly I was back in my bed and I was having this same hallucination of this like creepy old woman's voice, and it sounded like it was getting closer and more intense. And so I'm like freaking out even more. I'm like, I need to get out of here. I need to get out of here. I'm about to die. So finally I did. I'm freaking myself out. I thought I heard something. And I was like, I need to get out of here. I need to get out of here. So I'm struggling some more. And then I did. I got out of bed. I ran out of the room. I ran to the bottom of the stairs. And again, I'm like, oh my gosh, my feet still aren't touching the ground. And then I got pulled back into my bed again. And I don't remember after that if I was still hallucinating or if I eventually like wore myself out and fell asleep. There was another one that was more recent, because I don't want to make this video a million hours long. I have a bunch of stories, so if you want a part 2, I will do a part 2. But the third story I would say, I think would probably be the last sleep paralysis episode that I had, or the last really like memorable one, was in this apartment. This was probably 3 to 3.5 years ago. I was laying in bed, again, of course, trying to sleep. I was snuggled up in my blankets, with my blankets all the way up to my chin, probably. And I was starting to fall asleep, and I got sucked into sleep paralysis again. And I don't remember that I had any auditory or visual hallucinations with this one, but this was definitely a tactile hallucination. Since I was kind of like snuggled up in my blanket, I started having trouble breathing, which happens in sleep paralysis, and it started to feel like my blanket was constricting around me, almost like shrink wrap or something, and it felt like it was being suctioned to my face, and I felt like I was being smothered and suffocated by my own blanket, and I'm like struggling to breathe, and I was like, I knew sleep paralysis was happening, but I was like, I'm being smothered right now, and I was struggling to breathe, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to die. I'm really going to die right now. And eventually, this time I do remember I got out of it, and I got out of bed, and I got up and walked around, because the other thing with sleep paralysis is a lot of times if you get yourself out of it, you have to sit up or stand up and kind of like shake it off, because you still feel very heavy and very groggy and almost drugged. So if you try to fall asleep again right away, you still have those chemicals, those neurotransmitters going on, and you can get pulled right back into it. So you have to get up and kind of like shake it off and wait till that kind of weird groggy feeling goes away, and then try and sleep again. And it can be very exhausting. It is very exhausting, and you just feel so tired and like completely drained of all energy. So that's what I did when I got out of that one. I got out of bed, thankfully. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you get out of it and you go right back in before you can even get up. But I think, so those were auditory and tactile hallucinations. Oh, one in my first apartment where I got sleep paralysis, and I heard this really loud booming voice, like really loud. I couldn't understand what it was saying, but it like hurt my ears, because it was so loud and like shouting and screaming, and there was like this weird cloudy like fog floating in the middle of the room, and there was like, it looked like a bunch of different colors flashing in it, and like lightning, and every time like the voice would like start screaming and shouting, like the lights and colors would go crazy and stuff like that. So that was really weird. And there was another one where I think it was in the last place I lived in. I got sleep paralysis, and there was like some people refer to as a shadow person. So it was like basically a person wearing like a completely like all black latex suit, no face, nothing. It was basically like a shadow. But I could feel the bed being pressed down, and they were climbing up onto the bed and climbing up my body and pinning me down and just like right in my face, like looking at me. And that was another one where I may have just fallen asleep afterwards, but that was really creepy. That was very scary. So yeah, those were a couple visual hallucinations that I had during that. But I have some more stories I could probably tell you, but I don't want to make this video a million hours long. And before I go, there are a couple more things I want to say. The first thing is I have a few more shout outs for you. This will be my Sunday shout outs. So when I do have any shout outs for you guys, they will be in my Sunday videos, and they will either be small channel shout outs, subscriber shout outs, or shout out a comment, whatever the case may be. Today I have a few channel shout outs for you, and I apologize in advance if I butcher your names. I will try my best, but I apologize if I mispronounce anything. But I will leave the links in the description as always, so please go check them out, subscribe to them, and that would really help these smaller channels out. So in no particular order, we have Bulaquena In America, Carramel Fit, Dizzle Co, and MooseTube. So go check their links out, subscribe to them, and if you are a small YouTuber, you have a small channel, please feel free to introduce yourself in the comments, give a description of what your YouTube channel is about, and I will subscribe to you. And I really hope that you guys will all subscribe to each other as well, because the whole point is to support smaller YouTubers, help each other's channels grow, and just kind of boost each other up and help each other out. So feel free to give a little shameless self-promotion down there in the comments. I also wanted to show you, this is a journal, and I'm not going to show this in a journaling video, so I'm going to show it to you now. This has to do with my budget that I was talking about. And before I write anything in here, I just wanted to show you guys what I did. I'm going old school. I have a money journal. So this is literally like I'm keeping track of everything on paper instead of like always looking at my bank account. There's a method to the madness there, and I don't feel like going into it right now because this video is probably way too long. But yeah, I wanted to show you guys that as well. So anyway, as always, thank you for watching. Shout yourself out, leave comments, give this video a like, let me know what you think, ask me questions, give me suggestions, all of that good stuff. And I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next week. Bye!